Hello, everyone. In this video, I have done the analysis for 2024 express entry draws. A lot of you will find this quite interesting and meaningful because based on this analysis and some of the predictions, you can strategize your PR journey. So do watch till the end. So let me introduce myself. My name is Sandhu. I'm a CICC regulated Canadian immigration consultant based out of Ontario, Canada. And here's the disclaimer: this is only for informational purposes and should not be construed as legal or professional advice. If you want one, maybe you can book a appointment, right? So without any further ado, let's look into the draws for 2024, right? So what I've basically done is I have just copy pasted, all the draws which have happened for this year. So it started with January 10th, 2024. The first draw was a general draw. And then the last draw for this year was on December 16th. So from here, one can quickly see that the number of draws which happened this year is 52. And the total number of invitations sent was 98,903. So very important to understand is that these are the number of invitations, right? So these are not number of people. For example, let's say you could be a family of four, you could be a family of two, or you could be a family of one yourself, right? So average, maybe there are 2.2 or 2.3 people per application. So that is the guess, right? So we will use that basically guess in order to do some of the calculations or the assumption to do some of the calculations. Now let's look at all the invitations, right, for this specific year 2024. And if you can see, let me go one by one. So we had only one agriculture draw, and considering what we've seen, that this draw was, there were only 150 invitations. So it's kind of not something which is a good sign. And also, if you look at the immigration level plan for next year, there are not very many chances that there would be some opportunity here under express entry. Now, if you look at the Canadian Experience Class draw, there are a lot of draws which happened in Canadian Experience Class, and that fundamentally changed in, I think, after April. Since April of this year, the most of the draws were in general category as well. There was not any CGC draw since till April, but after that it started to change. So from, if you can see, from May onwards, so there has been no general draw but only CEC's draws. And if you see, the total number of invitations is 26,500 and the number of draws were 10, right? And then if you look at the French language proficiency draw, this seems to be the favorite category, because if you see, the number of draws which have happened is 11 draws, right? So, and there have been like scores which are very low, very high. We will discuss that in the next sheet as well. But just to give you an idea, the draws were happening quite regularly, right? So it started in February and there were 11 draws, right? Then general draw, if you see here, so they were all the general draws from January till April. But after April 23, the only draw which happened were Canadian Experience Class. So they stopped the general draws. And I don't even know what is going to happen for 2025, but my guess is that there might be maybe no general draw, or maybe a one general draw. And people who are, let's say, outside Canada, they could benefit from the category based draws, right? That's the only area where they will benefit in general. So otherwise, there is a so the specific general draws, I don't think so there will be many. And even if you look at the immigration level plan, so it seems that they are going to be focusing on those in Canada, right? Which means that Canadian Experience Class. Healthcare, there were 3 draws, right? Not a lot, but 3 draws. Then provincial nominees, of course, they will have to conduct, because they have an agreement with the federal government. Provinces and federal government have an agreement. So whenever, so they conduct these draws quite regularly. And this is kind of have no bearing on you as such, right? STEM draw, one happened in April. I think STEM as a category is kind of losing its shine. I don't even predict that there will be any, or maybe one draw might happen in 2025. Most likely, maybe none. So they might have to focus through the, either under the Canadian Experience Class, or there could be like Ontario Human Capital Priority Stream, right? So if you meet those requirements, you might have a chance there, or even Alberta Tech Pathway might be another one. And there are many others as well, but mostly through the provincial. But under express entry category, I don't think so. They have some advantage as of now. Trades, there were only 2 trades draw, which is also surprising, because the government is trying to focus on French healthcare and trades. So there were only 2 trade draws. And then if you look at transport, it's also losing its steam as well. Only 1 draw happened. So if you ask me, the ones which are going to benefit would be Canadian Experience Class, and they will be focused on French. Second would be, I would say, healthcare, and the third, I would say, trade. So these are the 3 categories where you will have people with work experience will have an advantage, or if you have language skills of French at CLB level 7, you will have an advantage. Now let's look at the cutoff scores as well, right? Agriculture was 437, then Canadian experience class. If you see, the lowest score for this year was 507, right? But I think next year in 2025, the scores will come down eventually, most likely in the second quarter. And if you look at the French, the lowest score was 336 in February 29. So that was pretty low score, right? And a lot of people could also benefit if they speak CLB level 7 in French and CLB 6 in English. They could also may be eligible if they meet the eligibility requirements for Ontario French speaking skilled worker stream as well. I think the last draw which happened for that was somewhere in the lowest range cutoff was, I think, 290, but don't quote me on that, but you can check for yourself. Then general, there's no point talking about that. Healthcare, the scores are increasing if you see from 422, 445, 465. And there are a lot of strategies as well, how you can, improve your chances in the healthcare. Even if you have studied business or you have studied, for example, anything which is not related to health, there are chances through which you can qualify under healthcare as well. Provincial nominees, there's nothing to talk about there. STEM occupations, only one draw happened, so 491. So this is as bad as point of qualifying for the Canadian experience class, but not as bad, I would say. But still, the score is pretty high, close to 500, which is not that exciting. Trade, this trade is hovering around 433, 436, which is in a way is a good thing. So people who are gaining experience in trade would benefit, right? Now, I want to do a little bit of analysis on how many express entry invitations get wasted as well. So I did a little bit of calculation, and I want to share your calculation with you. If you see, this is the immigration level plan for 2024. So under economic immigration, federal high skilled. So federal high skilled, which means that all programs which are through the express entry. So this is like an express entry specifically. And there were also provincial nominee. Now, provincial nominee programs also fall into two kind of categories. Some of them are related to express entry. They're express entry linked, right? So you need to have an express entry profile. And some of them are non-express entry. But the quota for the total PNPs one was like 110,000 people. Here was also 110,770 people. So these are not invitations. Very, very important to understand. Quotas are never invitations. Because on one invitation, there could be more than two people, more than one people, maybe 4 people, 6 people, depending upon what is the family size and how many dependents are in the application, right? So let's do a little bit of quick analysis, because I remember that somebody was saying, oh, you know what? My estimate based on some of these assumptions which I've made, right? So those assumptions can also be not correct, but this is my assumption. So if you have better assumptions or if you have some other, please do share with me and I can work on those data as well. But if you look at the federal high skill, so 110,700. So these are all express entries. So there's nothing to worry about here. So this is the number of people. And if you look into PNP, I'm assuming that 40% of PNPs out of the 110,000 would be through express entry. So 44,000, right? So total PR target for express entry related programs such as Canadian Experience Class, PNP, Federal Skilled Worker Program, all of them put together would be 154,770 people. So these are the number of people who got their PR or will get their PR through the express entry for 2024. This is like kind of a guess, right? Obviously, people who are getting invitations, let's say in September of this year or October of this year, they most likely will be processed in next year for 2025. But let's look into also the people who have in the previous year got their invitations in September, August, September, October, November, December would have got. So in a nutshell, it will kind of cancel. It's just an approximation any which way. So this is the number which I thought that number of people who will get their PR through the express entry this year would be 154,000. But if you look at the actual express entry invitations is 98,900. So these are invitations, not people. And based on the ratio, so one application might have husband and wife. One invitation could have, let's say, or application could have husband, wife, 2 kids, and some of them could be only one person, right? So based on an average of 2.3. So if I multiply this number of invitations which happened this year, right? We know that express entry invitations happened is 98,900, 903. Based on that, so there should be 227,000 people, who would have applied, right? But that's not what happened, right? So this is the number of people based on the number of invitations, right? So, but the number of PR target is only 154. So based on these number of invitations, this means we have kind of overcalculated. How much we have overcalculated? Around 72,000 people, right? Because the actual, so if you see the actual PR target for Express Entry linked is only 154. But how much we overcounted? 227,477, what we counted total, and we overcounted by 72,000. Now, if we have counted 72,707 people, and so the number of invitations wasted. Now, when I'm saying wasted, so wasted could be number of factors, right? So there are many factors why these get wasted. One of them is people are creating the Express Entry profile wrong. A lot of people I've seen, they created their Express Entry profile wrong. What do you mean by wrong? They sometimes put their work experience hours incorrectly. They sometimes put their work experience and they do not account for the vacations, or or they work remotely, but they still do not put the work experience. They get the invitation ahead of time, right? And they will have to then decline. So there are a lot of those people. So now, if the number of invitations wasted is around 32,000, and this 32,000 invitations get wasted out of the 98,000, so this means that around 1 out of 3 invitations get wasted. Let's say even if some calculation is haywire, so it means even if on a lower level, it would be around 1 out of 4, maybe 25% get wasted, right? All right. So those wasted could be declined, or they submitted the application, they forgot to attach their police clearance proper, or there's so many mistakes people make. They just want to, get the invitation and say, you know what, we'll see when it happens. And they mess up their whole application because of that. So those are the reasons which I believe that a lot of people who, get their invitations wasted, and make sure that you create your Express Entry profile very, very carefully. So now let's look at the predictions for 2025, right? Before that, let me just quickly look at the overall immigration level plan for 2025. If you see here, the federal economic priorities, this is 41,700, and in Canada focus is 82,980. So in Canada focus primarily means Canadian experience class. Primarily, there might be sprinkling of federal skilled trades or maybe other federal skilled worker. Very, very unlikely. Maybe there is one draw they sprinkle here and there for 2025, but mostly it will be people who have 1 year experience in Canada, which means essentially they qualify under the Canadian experience class. Obviously, you do not have to be in Canada unless they create some new criteria. But the assumption here is that if you qualify for Canadian experience class, you should be part of this quota in Canada focus. And then you have federal economic priorities, which is 41,700. So this caters to all those categories like French speaking, or you have a draw for healthcare, or you have a draw for trade occupations. So those would count towards the 41,700. And last but not the least, provincial nominee programs, they are struggling right now with the quota. The quota for 2024 was 110,000, and it has been reduced by half to 55,000 for the 2025. So this will put a huge pressure on all the students and all the professionals who are thinking of going through the PNPs, right? And also, if you were to look at the CRS score distribution as well, if you see there are right now 221,310 people who are in the pool, right? So number of candidates in the pool is around 221,000. Obviously, there would be few duplications as well. There would be a few people who might have created fake profiles or whatever that might be. And if you see the number of candidates in the CS score between 501 to 600, you see there's 19,885, and it might be increasing as well by the time the next draw happens, right? So it must have gone above 20,000 by 1st January 2025. So with this in background, now this is my prediction. My prediction is that Canadian experience class will have advantage. People who have experience in Canada, who came as students in Canada. So that dream is difficult, but it's still alive as compared to people who are outside Canada. So anyone who is in Canada, who studied from Canada, who gets work experience in Canada will always have an advantage over those who have outside Canada experience as such, right? So that's number one. And then the only hope for people who are outside Canada would be to become eligible, if I'm only specifically talking about the Express Entry linked programs, is to be eligible for category-based draws. So this would be French. If your language scores are in French is CLB level 7, right? And there are 2 tests which are valid for that, which is one of them is TCF and one is TEF Canada. And people can get really good scores if they score high on French, right? In their CRS calculator, and you can check those kind of combinations and see how the score is impacted. I've seen people getting scores of approximately 60 or 62 scores if they have really high French score and good English score, and with some of the other factors, second language scores put together, around 62 points jump. Then you have CC cutoff scores. My prediction is that the scores will drop below 500. in the second quarter of 2025, and primarily because of two factors, right? One is that there is a very high CEC quota, which is around 82,980. So that is a huge quota. So uh, since the draws will happen primarily for CEC, a lot of draws could happen, so they will have an advantage. Secondly, the removal of the job offer points as well. So those people with LMIAs, right, or even LM exempt work permits who were trying to claim those 50, 200 points may not be able to claim those points in spring of 2025. So the details are still awaited, but that will also make these points much lower. The score range for 501 to 600 will actually reduce considerably if a lot of people lose those points as well. And the PNP will become more challenging as the quota is reduced. So a lot of people are basically relying on PNPs, and I'm pretty afraid that now provinces will also prioritize certain occupations, right? The chances of having general draws and those kind of draws could reduce, right? So that is my my guess, and the reason is simple, right? When you have scarcity, you will always prioritize something, right? So that's how I would see this as well. And then there is also increase. There could be an increase in fraudulent foreign experience points, because there are a lot of people who know that they would be able to claim foreign work experience points as well while being in Canada as well through remote work. But there is something which is happening, which has changed very drastically with IRCC. They are looking now with every experience with a magnifying glass. So a lot of people will get misrepresentations and will get 5-year bans. Those who are trying to play around with the system and try to claim fraudulent, foreign experience or even Canadian experience plants. So they need to watch out. So there are many other strategies which you can adopt to improve your chances of getting PR in Canada. So I've created so many videos related to PR pathways, different options available, tips and tricks, and everything in between. So do subscribe to the channel and do like this video. So that's the only motivation I want from you. That's the only ask I have from you. So wish you all the very best, and thank you for watching.